Hello everyone, welcome to the session on power system. My name is Adit and I'll be handling this subject for you. So in this session, we will be looking at a brief overview of what the subject is, and followed by we will be looking at the syllabus and a few of the previous gate questions. Right? Since you are attending this session, I am assuming that you are an electrical engineering student or an electrical engineering graduate planning to attempt the electrical engineering gate this year. Right? So you might be familiar with the power system curriculum, and usually universities tend to split it into two or three subjects, right? So when I was doing my BTech, power system was divided into three subjects having 3 credits each, and they spanned over 3 semesters, right? But however, when it comes to GATE, the syllabus is more narrow and streamlined, and it will take us approximately 40 to 50 hours to cover the entire syllabus. So my aim here is to help you understand and grasp the concept such a way that you can walk through the subject the same way as though you're reading a novel or following a story. Right? I know that power system is probably the second largest uh, topic in your GATE curriculum, but stick with me. By the time we are done, I hope that you will be able to handle power system question with ease. Right? So yeah, for further ado, let's start. Okay, so when you think about electricity, or in the initial days, we were talking about electricity very specifically for lighting and heating purposes, right? Then slowly we started finding different applications for electrical energy. Right now we have a lot of appliances which use electricity. To the point we are at a juncture where we are going towards a direction where electrical energy will be the prime form of energy in our life, or probably the only form of energy in our life, which is extremely dangerous. Right? Earlier we used to use fossil fuels or petroleum for that matter for cooking as well as our transportation. But we are now at a point where we are actually even moving towards using equipment that use electricity for the same purposes. Right? This is a dangerous position that depending on only one form of energy. But that also brings on us, the electrical engineers, to ensure that there is reliable and safe supply of electricity. Right. We've been talking about electrical energy and all the applications, right? Like lighting and all things. But if you think about it, electricity is just an energy carrier, right? Now, why do I say that? Think about it. In our day-to-day life, we have a lot of equipment, like say a CFL bulb or a bulb or a LED lamp. It takes electrical energy and converts that into light energy. And we are actually using that light energy. We are not consuming electrical energy, right? Per se. We are consuming the light energy. Or think about the fan or the motor, right? It takes the electrical energy and converts that into kinetic energy. We are using that kinetic energy, not consuming the electrical energy per se. Even be it heating like in a stove or your heater, right? There also it is the heat energy that we are consuming. There is no point in our life where we consume or use electrical energy directly. It just is an energy carrier. It is just a glorified energy carrier. Think about it. Think if there are any applications in your life or any application that you can think about where we consume electrical energy directly. So I had asked this question to my last year students as well. So they came up with some interesting answers. Maybe we will discuss this in the upcoming session. Right. So now what is power system all about? So you will find that it is more or less connected to these three keywords, right? Generation, transmission, and distribution, right? Now let's look at them one by one. So what is generation? So before talking about generation, let's refresh a fundamental concept from physics, right? That is the law of energy conservation. That energy can be neither created nor destroyed, it can be only converted from one form to another, right? So we need energy for different purposes in our life, but it is not available in the nearby surroundings. But the nature actually has abundant sources of energy. So how do we take that energy and get it to the point where we want to use it? So that is where electricity or power system comes into picture. Right? What we do is that we suppose water, flowing water has kinetic energy. What do? We build dams, right? And we store the water and then convert that potential energy into kinetic energy. And using alternators or generators, we convert that into electricity. Right? That conversion process is called as generation. So the kinetic energy of flowing water, then the heat energy that is present in coal, which is our thermal power plant, or the uh, power that we can, or the energy that we can get from nuclear fission and fusion, right? So there are different forms of energy available in nature. Converting that into electrical energy, that conversion process is called as generation, right? Now, as we said, due to different reasons, these sources of energy are usually far away from where we live. It is probably due to the fact that building a reservoir takes up a lot of land. So it is usually far away from where we are. Or thermal power plant requires coal and water, so it is usually located in places like that. Nuclear power plant, due to safety concerns, we tend to keep it far away from where we live. So we need to bring that energy from where it is generated to where we want to consume it. So that process of transporting power is called as transmission, right? Then once we bring that from the place where it is generated to a point where we are planning to use it, then what we do is that we use the distribution system or the grid to bring it from the substation to our houses, right? And use it. And this process is called as distribution. So basically, power system is about taking the energy available in nature, converting that into electricity, and transmitting it over the distance, bringing it to the point where we are going to consume it, and then finally consume it. So this is basically power system, right? So what are the aspects associated with each phase, and how do we handle it? What is the techniques that we use? And these are the things that are covered in power systems, basically, as simple as that. The next thing that we are going to look at is two terms that we tend to use interchangeably, but we should not. That is energy and power, right? So this again brings us back to physics, right? So if you think about it, power system is a combination of a lot of physics. So we borrow a lot of concepts from physics. We take a lot of concepts from mathematics. There are some from network theory and some concepts from electrical machines. So if you have an understanding or grasp on these topics, power system will be a key core, right? So what we consume, right? What we consume, the bill that we get is for energy, right? And what we actually generate or the ratings of all the machines and all the things would be in power, right? That will be megawatt. So we know that energy is power consumed, right? So don't use these terms interchangeably. So if you think about it, if you have 10 devices at your home, right? Each would require certain amount of energy to do the work that it has to do over that period of time, right? Then, so it is the ability to do work, right? So in order to achieve that, in order for all those 10 devices to work simultaneously, the source should be able to provide power, right? The source should be able to provide power so that all the n devices can draw energy. If this is confusing for you, don't worry. We will discuss this further in coming session, and whatever confusion or clarity that you lack in these two terms, we will discuss. Right? Don't worry about it right now. Okay. So the next thing that I want to look at is few of the important equipment in power system, right? Or the physical equipment. So yeah, before let's discussing that, let's look at one thing, that is voltage, right? So the power system is physically designed with voltage as reference. So why do we do that? That is also an interesting question. We can use current as a reference as well, but we have choose to do design the system with respect to voltage. The why of it we will discuss in the upcoming session. Right. So for now, let's have the understanding that the system is designed with voltage as reference. Right. So the first thing that I want to discuss is generators. So as we discussed in generation, it is the physical equipment that converts energy that is available in nature into electrical energy, right? So usually what happens is that uh, due to the physical restriction of the size of the generator, we tend to generate voltage at a nominal level, that is usually 11 kV, right? So, because if we have if we want to generate voltages at generate power at higher voltages, the size of the machine becomes practically impossible. So we tend to generate it at 11 kV. And what we do is that we use transformer, which again is a topic that you will learn in electrical machine, right? To convert, step up the voltage from 11 kV to a higher voltage, right? It could be 400 kV or it could be 220 kV, right? It use transformers to step it up to a higher voltage and yeah, step up to a higher voltage and then use transmission line to transport the power from the place where it is generated to our load center, right? And once it comes over here at the substation, we use step down transformers again. We step down transformers to step the voltage down to the level that we consume it, step it down to 11 kV and bring it to distribution centers. And again, we have local transformers at our nearby area, which will step it down to the voltage that we use at our home. Then we finally feed that into loads, which are actually one of the most important components, and they consume that power, right? They convert that energy into the form of energy that we want and we use it. So these are the major equipment in house. There are more equipment, but we will look at them as we go through the course, right? So the next thing okay, if you see over here, I have written down three names: Edison, Tesla, and Westinghouse. So yeah, you might be already familiar with the whole war between Tesla and Edison, but actually it was not a war between Tesla and Edison. It was actually a war between Westinghouse and Edison, where Westinghouse championed the technology created by Tesla. So we know that Edison is the inventor of bulb, but he was also a person who championed the DC grid. So he had a whole setup of DC grid, and he was pro DC because it is easy to visualize how the DC current flows, how the physical setup is. Right? It is at that point Tesla comes up with the alternator, right? And it is it was and it is still a path-breaking technology. And the idea that the voltage and current can alternate and still we will be able to transport power is mind-boggling, right? And a lot of people were skeptical about the technology, and Edison was one such person. So he was against AC, right? So there was a period of time where these two people were racing to set up the grid. So Edison was trying to set up the DC grid, and Westinghouse was trying to set up the AC grid. And finally, in that race or war, the Westinghouse Tesla team won. We ended up having the AC grid, right? But now, if you look at it, over the period of time, we have kind of hit saturation with AC. Right? We have tried to increase the transmission voltage level. We try to step up the voltage transmission level, but beyond a point, there are a lot of stability constraints associated with it, and it makes it impossible to push it beyond a level. So right now, we are actually coming back to DC, and now it is called as HVDC, right? So in India also we have a lot of HVDC lines that transport bulk power from, say, I think there is one line that is being constructed, it's almost about over, from all the way from northeast to Delhi, right? So yeah, Now we have a hybrid grid where we use both AC and DC. Right? Right. So that is basically an overview about the topic and the interesting aspects about it. Yeah, one more thing that I forgot to tell you. If you are interested in this, you can read it up. I think there is also a movie called as Current War that has tried to capture the history, right? So you can have a look at it. Okay. So now that we have looked at what electricity is, what power system means, and all of this, let's look at the syllabus. Okay. So this is the syllabus for power system that was in GATE 2020. So the brochure for GATE 2021 is yet to be released. So when it releases, if there is any change in syllabus, I will update it. What I recommend is that when the brochure comes, right, you should download it and you should go through the syllabus and all the uh, rules and regulations that they have set up for your exam. It is actually always a good habit to read the brochure, right? So that you understand if there is any change in the syllabus or if there is any change in the pattern. That all indicates towards that something that they are trying, right? If there is some addition to syllabus, that means it most likely there will be a question from that topic, right? So yeah, when you get the brochure, go through the syllabus not just for power system, but for every topic that you have to prepare for, right? Okay. So if you see here, these topics, the concept of power generation, AC/DC transmission concepts, modeling of transmission lines and cables, electrical distribution and installation, and distribution system. So these five topics form the fundamental understanding of what the physical power system is, right? So if you are going to learn power system, you need to understand what the physical network looks like or how is it actually achieved, right? We can always talk about concepts on a higher level in theory, but how do we physically or actually achieve it? So these topics will give you that understanding. Even though there have not been much questions from these topics in the last few years, we will be covering this in depth because we need this understanding to understand the rest of the topics. Also, if you are going for your master's in power system or even power electronics for that matter, or even electrical systems, you need to have this understanding. Even if you're interested in going to a PSU also, understanding of these topics will form the core of what you will work with, right? Okay. Then the next topic that we will be looking at is per unit quantity. Right? So why do we need the concept? So this is a mathematical concept. So why do we need the concept of per unit quantity? So think about it. You have 0 watt bulbs at your home, which actually consumes more than 0 watt power, right? So there is 0 watt bulbs which is connected to the same grid, and at the other end of the spectrum, we have huge motors in industries that consume kilowatt and megawatts of power. So it is in the same system that we have a near 0 watt consumption and a megawatt consumption. And also there are different voltage levels where we have the 11 kV or even the fundamental 230 or 240 volt, right? Then we have the transmission at 400 kV or 765 kV for that matter. So we need to bring them all into a common reference frame so that the mathematical computation associated with it is easier and it is easier for us to understand. Right? So per unit quantity is basically a mathematical technique or approach we use to normalize the different values present in the system. We'll look at it in detail because this is required to attempt a lot of problems in our system. Right? The next thing is that when when we are as engineers, when we are trying to study any system, the first thing that we need to do is model it, right? We need to bring that, we need to understand that system physically and represent that system mathematically and graphically. So bus admittance matrix is the way of representing our system mathematically, right? There is also one topic called as one line diagram, which is about graphical representation, and this is mathematical representation. So we will learn here how to represent a power system in mathematically so that we can solve the problems associated with it, right? Right. So the next topic that we would be looking at is something that we left in between, which is series and shunt compensation. So before we talk about series and shunt compensation, right, we need to understand that when we are dealing with AC or alternating current transmission, we tend to represent the quantities like power, voltage, current, or impedance as complex numbers. So I am assuming that you have already learned or you are familiar with the concept of complex numbers, where we represent a term which is said as A plus IB, right? Where A is called as the real part and B is called as the imaginary part. But in power system, since I is synonymous with current, we tend to use J, where J is nothing but root of minus 1, right? So when we come to the concept of power, there is S is equal to P, which is called as real power or active power, plus A Q, which is the reactive power. This is called as the reactive power. So what is the idea? The idea is that we are generating some amount of power, right? Then when we are coming to the application, say suppose it's a motor or a light, uh, only a certain amount of power that we generated is we get to use it. There is a small amount of power that was missing with air quotes, right? With air quotes, so missing. So this actually does not go missing, and that power is called as reactive power. So you might have already heard about the whole beer and sauce analogy, which I don't exactly agree with, but the idea is that there are a lot of inductive components and capacitive components in the physical network, right? And we need to set up the magnetic field or the electrostatic field in these components for these components to actually work. So if you think about it, if you think about a motor or a generator, right? You need to set up that magnetic field for it to work properly. And we need some amount of energy to set up this magnetic field or electric field. And the energy drawn for that is actually the reactive power, fundamentally. Right? So it is not lost, but again, when you think about it, I have generated some amount of power saying that I need that much power to create kinetic energy, but we don't get it completely. So our effort will be always to make sure that we get most of the power that we use. So we'll try to reduce the reactive power that is consumed. So shunt and series compensation is about reducing or managing the reactive power, right? Right. Then, okay. Then we are talking about Gauss-Seidel and Newton-Raphson load flow, the keyword being load flow. So this is basically like taking a snapshot or a picture of power system. So what we do is that we cannot measure all the values at all the points. So what we do is that we take uh, the grid, right? We represent the grid. Then we know few values at certain points. So we take a time frame, like a photo, and we say, okay, we know certain values at of this point, certain values at this point, and certain values at this point. And we mathematically compute all the other unknown values. And that is basically load flow, right? There are two mathematical approaches, which is one is Newton-Raphson and one is Gauss-Seidel. So we'll be looking at that. Then, like we discussed in the previous section, our system is basically keeps voltage and frequency as fixed or as the reference. So we don't want it to deviate from the fixed or nominal value. Why? Why do we do that? And how do we do that? We will cover in this topic. Right? Now, power factor correction or power factor is also another topic that comes due to the complex nature of the power. Right? Basically, what power factor is that it says out of the actual apparent power that you are generating, So let's say it's S. Power factor is the fraction which we will get for our actual use. So we will try to make sure that power factor is unity so that we get all the apparent power for our application, right? So these two topics, power factor correction and series compensation, are usually closely tied from a questions point of view or from an understanding point of view. Okay. Now that we have talked about the system a lot till now, and one thing that you have to understand about power system is that it is the largest physical system in the world. Right? It's the largest grid. It's also considered as the largest man-made machine also in the world. So when we are having such a huge physical network, right, where we have open transmission lines over the hundreds of kilometers or thousands of kilometers, the chances of problems occurring are very high, right? And with any such problems, if it happens, the electricity supply will be disrupted. It should not happen. So fault analysis is about studying all the possible issues that could happen so that we are ready to handle them, right? So there are different types of issues that can happen in the system, which can be either symmetrical or unsymmetrical. The concept of symmetrical and unsymmetrical comes from the fact that we generate and use power in over three phases, right? Again, it brings up the question why. So always, this is something that I would encourage you to do. Always ask the question why. Like, why do we have three phase? Why is the current alternating? Why is the voltage alternating? Why is there a phase difference? So keep always ask the questions why. Think about it. If you are not able to answer the why, we'll answer it in the class together, right? Right. So there are different possibilities of different issues happening, and we have the approach to studying them is fault analysis. Again, the mathematics or numericals associated with fault analysis is complex. When you say complex, it's not about the complex numbers, it is complicated. So we need to simplify them. So symmetrical competence is another mathematical approach of simplifying the numbers or the values associated with fault analysis into simpler terms so that it is easier for us to comprehend and solve them. Right? That's what I'm saying. There are a lot of mathematical approaches, a lot of mathematical techniques that we use in power system to make our life easier. Right? So now we have understood that there are possibilities of problems. So when we have problems, what do we do about it? So that is where protection comes in. So basically, protection is like the life insurance we have in our day-to-day life, right? So what we try to say is that okay, for the different components that we use in our process that we told earlier, like mm, generator, transmission line, transformers, we will set up uh, different protection. So there are different approaches. There is overcurrent protection, differential and different protection. So we will look at how do we protect these equipments or how do we protect our system? What are the different approaches? And to do this, since our network is physical, we also need a lot of equipment, right? So such equipments are like circuit breakers, then we have relays, then we have CTs and PTs, right? So we will be also looking at these physical equipments, right? Last but not least, there is the concept of stability. See, we have a system which has a lot of rotating parts. Right? We have a system which has a lot of rotating parts, right? And also we are dealing with a system which is inherently oscillating, which has alternating current. So it is bound to have stability issues that when there is, and also we are also talking about system where we are keeping the frequency constant, right? So we are bound to have stability issues. So we will be looking at what are the different issues that can affect the system stability, how do we study them, and how do we handle them, right? Equal area criteria is one such approach, right? So that is basically the syllabus. So if you see here these topics, starting from unit quantities, to equality criteria, including the species and competition. This is the portion from which they have asked more questions in the last few years, right? But again, we cannot ignore the other topics because they form fundamental. So, but yeah, we'll be looking at problems from all topics, right? Okay. Now that we have covered the syllabus, let's look at few of the previous gate questions. So the first question is on the topic of per unit system. So what they have given here is that there is a synchronous generator, right? So its voltage rating is 10 kV and its power rating is 75 MVA. So they have given their direct access impedance as 0.4 per unit. See, usually impedance is has the unit ohm, but here they have said it as per unit. So what they have done here is that basically they have calculated something called as the base impedance, right? They calculated something called as the base impedance. So base impedance, what they have calculated is based on the reference values, that is 10 kV and 75 MVA. They have calculated the base impedance and they have divided the actual impedance in ohm with this base impedance to get the per unit value. Okay. The per unit values do not have a unit. We just simply put it as PU. Right? They are unitless, but we put it as per unit. Then the question what they're asking is, now they have decided that okay, there are a lot of other equipment in the system, and they want to use 100 MVA 11 kV as their base. So they want to solve. They are asking what will be the value of XD in this new case. Let's see how we can calculate it. So there is a formula which is X nu is equal to X old into MVA nu divided by MVA old into kV old by kV nu the whole square. So if we substitute all the values that we know, we will get it as 0.44. So if you are a person who finds it difficult to memorize formula, or if you feel that it is confusing to remember which is there in numerator, which is there in denominator, you can always go back to the basic concepts and come up to the formula. It is also easy because it doesn't take time. So this is something that I will tell you. If you are actually going to use a formula, always be aware about what that formula entails, right? There will be assumptions associated with it. Um, there will be you have to be careful about the values that you substitute and all this. So if you are not confident with this formula, we can always look at how we arrive at it. So basically, we know from the Ohm's law and rearrangement that base impedance would be V square by P, right? Or K square by base impedance. And as I told you earlier, X per unit is basically ohms divided by base impedance. Right? In a physical system, the value of this impedance is not going to change. Right? So basically, per unit old into base impedance old will be same as per unit new into base impedance new. So if you rearrange, you will get old is equal to BI old into BI new. So basically, calculate BI old separately and BI new separately, and you wouldn't have the confusion of what is in the numerator and what is in the denominator. Right? Okay, the next question that we are going to talk about is on the topic of power factor correction, right? So what they're saying here is that there is a motor that is drawing 12 megawatt, and they are saying at point lagging power. When they are saying this, what they are saying is that power factor is zero point 0.6, right? Then what they're saying is that then they have introduced a capacitor in parallel to the motor, right? And the power factor was improved to zero point 0.8 lagging, right? And one more thing that they have said over in the question is that even though the capacitor is connected, the motor still draws the same amount of active power and reactive power. If that is the case, what is the reactive power being supplied by the capacitor? Okay, let's look at it. So before the capacitor is introduced, the active power drawn is 12 megawatt. The power factor is 0.6 lag. So we know that active power is S cos phi, right? Cos phi being the power factor, right? So basically we calculate the apparent power as 20 MVA. So then since we know this, we can calculate the reactive power as 20 sin inverse of whatever the value of phi is, right? If you see here, this is also a recurring theme in BEAT. It's not just that they use interesting concepts in questions, they also tend to use interesting numerical relationships as well. If you see here, 0.6 and 0.8. They are trigonometric pairs. If you add them, you will get one. Square. If you square them and add them, you will get one. So basically, you don't actually need a calculator to calculate this. If you know this is 0.6, this is 0.8. I'm saying don't use a calculator, but this is one interesting thing that I have seen happening in gate questions. They tend to use beautiful numerical values, right? So we know, so from before capacitor introduced, we know that the motor is drawing 12 megawatt and 16 MVAR, right? So what happens next? We introduce a capacitor. So basically, there is the motor, right? And now we are introducing capacitor. Pardon my bad drawing. This is just to give you an idea, right? So there is S coming in here. This is basically P and Q, right? So since it's 12 megawatt, the PF is zero point 0.8 lagging. So we will calculate S, which is basically we'll get it as 15. So 15 MVA is being drawn from the main grid, right? Then if we calculate Q, we get it as 9 MVAR, which means 9 MVAR is being drawn from the grid. So this Q is 9 MVAR. In the earlier slide, we found that the motor requires 16 MVAR, right? And now only 9 MVAR is being drawn from the grid. So basically the difference is being supplied by the capacitor. So 7 MVAR is the answer. You can also use the formula. This is the formula. I don't prefer to use the formula approach. It's up to you. If you're a person comfortable memorizing formula and using it, you can go ahead and use it. There is no problem with it. But when you are using a formula, always ask yourself this question: what are the assumptions associated with it? Because usually gate questions tend to play around with the assumption that they will assume that you are going to use the formula directly, and they will play around with the assumption. So if you are using a formula, always ask the question, what are the assumptions associated with it? Okay. On that note, let's look at the next question. Okay. So this question, okay, what they're saying is that for a fixed value of complex power flow in a transmission line, extending voltage V, real power loss is proportional to what? So if we blindly jump into the question, we know that from Ohm's law, V is proportional to I, and V loss is proportional to I square, right? Making it V loss is proportional to V square. The answer will be C, which is wrong. If you read the question again clearly, it says for a fixed value of complex power flow in the transmission line. So we are trying to keep the value of complex power flowing through the transmission line as fixed. So what does that mean? It means S is equal to VI is a constant, right? So which means I is actually inversely proportional to V. Since we are keeping the complex power as constant, the relationship between I is inversely proportional to V. The active power loss will be inversely proportional to V square. Right? That is why I say always look at what is the assumption. So it is clearly mentioned in the question, this is the assumption. So the answer would be C. So the next question is from fault analysis. So you see the fault at the terminal of the synchronous generator, the fault current is maximum 4. Okay. If you look, sorry, I just lost my voice over there. Give me a second. Yeah, so if you look at the relay settings, we usually tend to set it for three-phase fault or three-phase ground to fault, right? But this is for a transmission line, right? But in the question they are asking for a synchronous generator. So let's look at what happens and see if it is true for synchronous generator as well, right? So for a synchronous generator, the zero sequence value is very small, right? It's very negligible. Then the value of x1 and x2 is same as subsynchronous reactance. So if you calculate the fault current for a LLL fault or LLLG fault, it is ER1 by X1, which is used to be 1 by XT dash, right? If you look at an LG fault, it is 3 ER1 divided by X1 plus X2 plus X0. So it will be 1.5 XT dash, which is higher, right? So for a synchronous generator, this is higher. But when it comes to a transmission line, this X0 value is not negligible. It's actually pretty strong, making this value smaller than this value. So remember this, for a transmission line, the highest fault current will be for an LLL fault, and for a synchronous generator, the highest fault current will be for an LG fault. Okay, right. Okay, the next question is from the bus admittance matrix. Okay, so what they've given is that we have they have given bus admittance matrix for a 3-bus system. So it is a 3-column 3 matrix, right? So this one represents the sum of all the elements connected at bus number 1, right? So this is between bus 1 and 2, and this is between bus 1 and 3. Similarly for other elements as well. So what have they said in the question? That if each transmission line between the buses represented by equivalent pi length. What does that mean? What does equivalent pi length mean? So any transmission line will have its own inherent resistance, inherent inductive reactance, and also some amount of capacitance. So how do we model this? When we are saying equivalent pi, what is saying that if there are if there's a transmission line between 2 buses, we have a lump resistance, lump reactance, and we divide the capacitance into 2 and put it at this. Again, pardon my drawing, I'm not very good at this, but yeah, just to explain the concept, right? So this is R, S, right? And so shunt resistance by 2. It's called a half line shunt resistance. Okay? So what they are asking is, what is the shunt susceptance for the line between 1 and 2? Okay? So if you take the sum of a row, right, you will actually get the shunt connected at that bus. So assuming that there is no other physical shunt in the system, since it's not mentioned, if you take the sum of row elements for each row, we will get the shunt at that bus, right? So since there is line at node 1, there is line between 1 and 2 and 1 and 3, and it is half. This 2j is the contribution of half shunt line susceptance of line between 1 and 2 and half shunt line susceptance between 1 and 3. Similarly, for node 2 it is 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, and for node 3 it is 1 and 3 and 2 and 3. So what do we have in our hand? Basically we have 3 equations and 3 unknowns, right? So if we solve them, we will get y12 as 2j. That's it. So far we have been looking at previous gate question, and the whole point of this exercise was to show you how to approach questions from power system. How to approach questions from power system, right? How to approach questions from power system. And as I have been keeping on telling you, it's always better not to take the formula approach, and if you are taking the formula approach, always ask the question, what are the assumptions? So this question is from GATE 2020, last year. So if you see here, this is about distance relay setting, right? So this is one of the questions with just a lot of information. They are saying that the line reactance is 0.2, the distance relay setting is 80%, then the terminal voltage is 1. So there is no generation at load. So there are a lot of information, right? They are throwing a lot of information at you. And when they are overloading you with information, there is always a possibility that you will miss something and you will end up making a mistake. And they will always have options in the answers to cover that mistake, right? What they are asking is, what is the threshold PU current? Okay, let's look at it. So the distance relay setting is 80%, right? And so the X threshold is actually 80% of the actual impedance. That is 0.2 into 0.8 will be 0.16, and the fault current will be V by X will be 6.25. Right? Suppose in this question you forgot or you ignored or you did not see the fact that the setting is 80%, then you will take the XTH as 0.2 and you will calculate the current as 1 by 0.2, and that will be I, and there is an option for it, right? You have to be careful, right? And the last question that I want to look with you was question from load flow, right? So what they are asking is that we have PV buses, right? And what is the information that we require to identify the real power part? So usually V is the rated voltage, right? But T is not actually the rated power. This is not the answer. This is also not the answer. The answer is actually solution of economic dispatch. So basically, economic dispatch is uh, mathematical technique or approach which we use in power system to identify based on the given load and generation condition how much each generator should generate. So basically, this solution of economic dispatch is the starting point for the load flow. So the real power is determined from the solution of economic load dispatch, right? So that is it for this session. So this is just trying to give you an overview about what power system is, what will be the syllabus, and a few of the previous 8 questions to give you a flavor of what questions from power system looks like, right? So in the coming sessions, we will take up topics one by one. We will look at the concepts in it. We will look at the previous 8 questions, and we will also look at some sample questions from each topic, right? And we will try to cover it as comprehensively as possible. So thank you for your patience and time. Hope to see you in the next session, and all the best.